The principles of health, as seen in a well-functioning human body, are very clear and universal. If there's an injury in the body mobilizes resources to be sent to that injury, nutrients, blood factors, immune factors, etc., to heal the problem, and therefore the body remains healthy. In a well-functioning society, if individuals in that society, if there's a trauma to individuals or groups in that society, the resources would be sent to that trauma, the appropriate resources to fix it in order to keep society healthy. And with the human species as a whole, the same principle applies. And there's no, the human species is in an appalling state, an absolutely fragmented, divided state of conflict with itself. So it's not healthy. We've never had health on that level, except in our deep history, obviously, before the process of civilization began. But our societies are obviously not healthy. And I want to draw attention to the fact that wealth, what we call wealth, is finite. What is wealth? Basically, it's other people's blood, sweat, and the tears of their meaningless social existence and meaningless lives turned into a liquid asset that is extracted by the wealthy. And if we look at a very wealthy person, I'm sorry to pick on Eckhart Tolle, but he's a good example because of the kind of work he does, which is very rewarding for him. But he's got, I don't know, perhaps he's got about 100 million by now in the bank. Last time I checked, it was 80 million, but that was years ago, I think, a few years ago. So let's say he's got about 100 million pounds. Where do you get that money from? Obviously, from people much less fortunate than him. People who read and buy his books and buy his expensive programs and all this rubbish, all this exclusive content rubbish. So he grifts off them. And I would estimate that no more than 10% of people in his country could own the wealth he owns before all the wealth of the population is used up. Do you see that? It's only possible for maybe, at most, I would say 10% of the population to be that wealthy. And then the rest of the population would have no wealth because wealth is finite. Now, the same principle applies on the global stage because of nationalism. Nations are competing blocks and they compete for economic growth, but that economic growth can only come by extracting from other countries. And obviously, the most powerful countries have the greatest capacity to extract and the greater efficiencies in the extraction processes. So, this implies that economic growth in the West will impoverish regions around the world, which are falling into war, conflict, depression. I mean, look at Lebanon, for example. I mean, massive inflation that's just left a quarter of the population to disband it. That's the kind of victim, the victims of richer nations. The South American countries similar. I'm not going to go into all of this because I'm not. It's up to you to look up the world, not especially as I have to remember facts and shit. But do you see that? So it's actually a great evil. Nation and economic growth is a great evil. If you're awake spiritually, if you're aware, if you're perceptive, you will see this. But have you absorbed the implications for your life? Anyway, I want to say something else. It's something Yiddi Krishnamurti illuminated for me. He pointed out that to solve global hunger, well, nationalism makes it impossible to solve global hunger because no one country can solve global hunger. It needs to be a collective effort. But we're all divided by policy, by we're all divided in our interests. We haven't got common interest because we're national blocks. So if we're to, when we address the problem of hunger, every country's got a different response. They're finger pointing who's more responsible, and stuff like that. So nationalism makes these problems impossible. Nationalism creates war. This is what Yiddu Krishnamurti argued. Nationalism is the basis for national conflict, obviously. And really, it's conflicts between forms of social conditioning that are slightly different in terms of ideas and values. And also, there's an urge for power. And this urge for power is itself evil. And the instrument through which we try and harness power over other peoples is through the nation. Let's look at nation, how it came to be, first of all. I mean, nation really is a phenomena. The nation, what we call nation, the modern nation, the idea of a nation, really, Britain was the first, England was the first nation, historians often say, the first proper nation, which means a comprehensive polity that runs the whole of a national landmass. And at first, it was very much associated or dominated by the monarchy, the king or queen, and the king would use nation as a means to exert domination and power, and that is also the beginning of parliament. So nation is a concept, first of all. What is real about nation is a concept used to circumscribe a particular geographical area, but there's nothing real about that, is there? The concept, we are one earth. This was our earth. We didn't consent to it being chopped up and divided from us. So nation is a deprivation of our whole earth and our whole potential human unity. Now, world government is going to be a universal tyranny in this state. So please, I'm not going in that direction. I'm going in a much more healthy direction, I hope. So nation is a concept appropriated by subsequent a shifting alliance of powerful groups through history. It was the monarch, then parliament came in, then business comes in, etc., etc. I mean, academia, etc. So there's what Gramsci, I think, described as a shifting alliance of social groups who exert total social authority on the rest of us through ideologies. And one of the principal ideologies is nation. They define what nation is, and by us identifying with nation, they're actually defining what we are. So they define the citizen through the concept of nation. They use the nation to create ideologies of control. And looking in America, Pledge of Allegiance, it is my duty, the Constitution. The idea of nation is used to socially condition the human being into subservience to the total social and national structure. But it's our life. It's not some external structure. Our life is not meant to be domination by other groups. I mean, none of us would consent to that. With interests foreign to our own. Our lives are meant to be our lives. So our nation is meant to be us. But it clearly isn't. We're not a concept. We're human beings. We're not a bunch of actual physical nations. We're planet. A nation has destroyed the planet. We're never going to tackle climate change because we're so divided nationally and all our interests are divided against each other. There's no global unity to create a global response that's going to solve our problems. And so it's going to destroy us. And I think nation is one of the principal reasons for that. But nation is really just an example of our social conditioning. The fundamental problem is social conditioning. But we need to recognize that social conditioning has different material impacts on the world, and nation is one of the most appalling bits of social conditioning and most dangerous for all of us. And I would say today, nationalism, and patriotism are spiritually and karmically evil, and the pursuit of economic growth by rich nations is evil, and the pursuit of economic growth as an individual is evil. I would say that. It may be unconscious evil for most people, but it's evil. Anyway, I just wanted to say that really. I'm bubbling over a bit. I'm very frustrated at the moment with the way the world is, and I just let off steam. So, not much reason for this post, but there we go. Cheers.